Why are you so fascinated by narcissism?
So I think the thing about narcissism is, it's a word that's thrown about quite easily at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, it's a good thing because it raises awareness. But I think for somebody who has actually experienced long-term narcissistic abuse, it can be, you know, the impact on your mental, physical, emotional health is destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And it completely destroys people. And not just individuals, there's a ripple effect to it as well. So it can affect family members, children, which is the worst part of it. So my experience was I was in a very long-term relationship, 25 years, and very slowly and insidiously, I completely lost who I was. My mental health deteriorated. There were patterns of behaviour with my former husband that were incredibly detrimental to myself and as myself functioning as a mother, trying to work, trying to, just function as a human being was really impacted by his behaviour. And it's only really when we separated suddenly that awareness was raised. Luckily, I was very lucky that we were seeing a therapist at the time. And she noticed that she didn't say he was a narcissist because somebody has to be clinically diagnosed to be a narcissist. But she recognised highly narcissistic traits. And I really didn't know what a narcissist was. I didn't know what narcissistic traits were. I think in my mind, when I thought of a narcissist, I was thinking of somebody, in the gym, loving themselves, really out there. And so I was thinking, that's not who I was married to. He was not like that at all. And it's only when we did work together and then I started just educating myself on narcissism and personality disorders that things started to fall into place. And I think when I came to the end of my relationship, I was in such a bad way in every sense of the word. I just thought, I really don't want anybody to ever feel like this.
So you pursued a career in finding ways
Yeah,
to help other people.
exactly. And initially, I wanted to learn about and explore more about narcissism to help myself so that I could recover and I could heal. Because my children were young, they were 10 and 13 at the time. And, it wasn't a case of shutting myself away and crying into a pillow. I had to get up every morning and function and be okay. I had to be okay, and that was hard. And so I had to do something, and I just wanted to learn more about it to try and understand, really.
Narcissism's a word that's very much thrown about nowadays. People
It
use it
is.
maybe as an insult, or you know, I looked up the word for the definition, and there's
Yeah.
that little thing on Google where you can see what year and how much a word was used and what year it was mainly used in, and
Okay.
you can go back to like the 1800s and stuff. And I'll put this on the screen for the podcast,
Okay.
but you can see that from the 1990s, 1995, it has a huge surge. And then up to 2019, 2020, bang, straight through the roof.
Yes.
And it's a word that was never used before.
Yes.
And we use it so much now.
Yes.
That causes problems, I think. As I just mentioned, people just throw it at people. And I'm sure you've seen this quite a lot. How can we differentiate between what a narcissist is as just a label or what it actually is as a personality disorder?
I think there's a lot of ignorance about it. I think the fact that there's a more awareness about it is a good thing. You've got to take the positives from that. But what it can do is for people who have suffered and are in narcissistic relationships or have come out of narcissistic relationships or have had to make decisions based on their narcissistic relationships. So it could be, I think a lot of the time people think it's a romantic relationship that causes the problems. It can be a parent. You could have a child who's narcissistic. You could have a boss, somebody you're working with, somebody where there's close contact on a regular basis, and it impacts severely somebody's well-being, and it's intentional abuse. They're very aware that they're doing it. So I think the fact that there's more awareness is great, is positive. But for people who've actually been through narcissistic abuse, it can diminish their experience. I think it's so easy, you know, you hear like, oh, my nan thinks that so-and-so's boyfriend's a narcissist, or, you know, you can't diagnose it. And the thing about people who do have NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, they have no accountability, they have no self-awareness, or they cannot be introspective about how their behaviour impacts other people. So they very rarely get diagnosed, because if you say to somebody, you know, you're showing narcissistic personality traits, most people with emotional intelligence will say, oh, well, what part of my personality? You know, they will ask questions, they'll be introspective. If you say that to somebody with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, they'll completely deny it straight away and attack. So very few people with narcissistic personality disorder will actually go and get diagnosed, because they cannot see anything wrong with their behaviour.
That's fascinating. So there's a lot of narcissists who kind of lurk in the shadows.
Yeah, they know very well what they're doing.
Yeah. A lot of people also are very concerned, I think, that they might be narcissists themselves. Is that a key sign that they might not be a narcissist?
Yeah, so if you're, as I say, narcissists don't have the ability to be introspective, to have any self-awareness, or to take any accountability on their own behaviours, negative behaviours. So I think the fact that somebody might question whether they are probably means that they're not. It's a high percentage that they're actually not a narcissist. Yeah, but I think what happens in narcissistic relationships is sometimes you can behave in a narcissistic way. So what narcissists do very well is something called emotional baiting. So they can behave in such a way to get you so, you know, they use different types of abuse. Gaslighting abuse is one of the worst. Financial abuse, all these different ways of abusing you. And when you stand up for yourself or react, you can behave in a way that is actually how they can sometimes behave. And you think, oh my goodness, because it feels very out of character. So, for example, I'll give you an example that happened to me. So there were many, but this is one. So my former husband didn't have any real healthy connections with anybody, really. You know, he was kind of like this secret entity. So he didn't have close connections with family members or people he worked with, friends. You know, he kind of had very superficial relationships where he could say, hi, how you doing? And then he would never connect. He'd never go out for a night out. He would never spend quality time with people. And so as a family, I set up a WhatsApp group with his family, his sisters, his parents and nephews. And I thought, maybe, you know, he doesn't want to engage spending quality time with people, but maybe, you know, if he sees his nephew posting a picture on the WhatsApp group, maybe he could just see and comment and go, wow, that's really cool. Or I just wanted to bring him kind of into the family. And when he left, he was having an affair. On this family chat, he put a picture of himself with the woman he was having an affair with. Now, my children were on that chat. They didn't know about it. I knew about the affair. I'd been told about the affair, but nobody else knew, and he knew that. And what he had done was a charity run raising money for a wildlife foundation. So it looked like he was great, like he was doing this really lovely thing. So all his family was saying, wow, that's such a great thing you're doing. And he wrote back, yeah, it was really good. And I went back and, you know, helped teammates finish the race. So it looked like he was like, that's a really lovely thing you've done there. But what he was doing was this thing called dog whistling, where I'm in tune with what's going on. I know what he's doing, but I've been conditioned to stay silent. So his bad behaviours, I would protect him. I would almost enable his bad behaviours because I had just become this person, like this people pleaser. You know, oh, he's fine. He's a really great person, really great husband. And he put this picture on the chat and I reacted. So I ended up writing a really horrible message on that chat. And one of his sisters immediately responded and said, you know, I think you need to go and see your therapist. And so I came across as this terrible person and I deleted it immediately. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, that's awful. What I've done is really, really awful. Like, he's done this really good thing. And maybe he didn't know he was doing it, or maybe he didn't mean to send that picture. And then I felt and I questioned my behaviour because of a reaction to his emotional baiting. He knew what he was doing.
So he had a way of making himself look good
Yes.
so that he could get away with doing something so extremely wrong.
Yes.
And he pinned the wrongdoing on you.
Yes.
So
because I would take the blame. I would, you know, what narcissists do very well is project shame and blame. They cannot take any accountability for behaviours, but they do something very well in intimate relationships, this thing called dog whistling, where they will bait you so that you will react, probably publicly, so that people think, oh my God, you know.
They seem to have a way to detach reality and image. It's about looking right, not doing right.
Absolutely.
What are four key main traits of a narcissist?
So the main traits is lack of empathy or no empathy. It depends on the narcissistic scale, you know, whether they're heading towards psychopath. So a psychopath would have absolutely no empathy. Pathological lying is one. This need for admiration, you know, this false grand persona that they create themselves. They need a lot of validation from people, and they take no accountability or responsibility for their behaviours.
So even if you try to approach them it's almost like how would you put it? They are so stuck in loving themselves that they will never fully realise how bad of a person they actually are.
I think they realise, I think they know what they're doing.
Do you think they realise deep down that they are narcissists, but they
Yes.
are just in denial of it in public?
They're not denial, they just cannot be that person. So there is something in narcissism called splitting. I don't know if you've heard of this. So a narcissist has to appear all good, perfect. Like, what a great guy, what a great person this is, what a great woman this is. They have to be absolutely perfect. So the slightest chink in their armour, somebody hears that they've lied, or they have been caught having an affair, or they have done something that isn't perfect. It's this splitting. So if there's the slightest thing, they then become all bad. So they have to be perfect at all times, or appear to be perfect at all times.
There's two stories which I really think about when talking about narcissism. There's the story of Narcissus,
Yes.
which is, I believe, where the
Term comes
comes from. I think you can correct me on the story, but it's Greek mythology, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's of Narcissus. He looks into the water and he sees
the reflection. Yeah.
Explain a little bit on that.
So basically, he looks into the water, and his reflection is, you know, this God, this perfection, this persona that is all perfect, all amazing. And I think what sometimes when people define a narcissist, they define their life as almost living in like a mirrored room, like seeing the reflection. Because what they do very well when they start a relationship is they mirror you. That's whether you might be working with somebody or going into an intimate relationship with somebody. They mirror you. So they connect with you on a different level where they almost love absolutely everything the same as you. So
Isn't that like building rapport,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
to a different level?
it can be, but the level that it goes to is beyond anything else. So when I met my former husband, every music I liked, he loved. Every place that I'd been, he absolutely loved. And it was only a few months and years down the line that he absolutely hated
Yeah.
all those same things. So when I first met him, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is just incredible. Like, he loves football. He loves, this is like in 1995, like Prince and Sade and all the music that I love. This is just incredible. He loves going to the beach in Devon. Oh my gosh, this guy just is amazing.
Why do they do that?
So you connect. So you think you've met the dream person. Because if you meet somebody and they go, I don't like, all the things you like, no, I don't like that, you'd think, maybe this is going to be a tricky relationship. Whereas if they completely mirror you, all your likes, all your dreams, everything that you're passionate about, where you want to go in life, and they have the same dreams, have the same likes, have the same loves, of course you're going to want to connect with that person.
So that you don't think that there's any fault with them. They're completely like you and they like the same things as you.
Absolutely. So this mirrored life they live, so there's mirroring, and then there's a reflection of themselves. So they need this adoration, even if it's from themselves, from themselves. And everybody else is almost just a reflection of their life, And so what they do very well also is if you make them accountable for behaviour, they will reflect it back at you. They will deflect it. They cannot, as I say, that splitting analogy where they have to be all perfect. If you challenge them on anything, there's this, I'm sure you've heard of DARVO, DARVO.
I haven't.
So DARVO is something that narcissists do incredibly well, especially if they are in relationship with somebody who's probably going to be an empath. Because empaths and narcissists are like the perfect combination for a narcissist.
Predator and prey.
Absolutely. So DARVO, if you challenge somebody who is behaving in a certain way, for an example, they will firstly deny, straight away, deny that they've done it. And then they will attack. So take no accountability and they will attack. And that can be pretty nasty. And then they do the reverse. So they become the victim, so DIRV, and then you become the offender. So it's done really, really cleverly. And when narcissists are in a relationship with an empath, the empath is very self-aware. They are very introspective. So when somebody says, oh, you've done something wrong, you go, oh, gosh, right, okay. Did I? Okay. And then you want to make it work, and then you're accountable, and then you want to make changes, and you want to do better. So narcissists are very good at doing this thing called DARVO. So they don't take any accountability for their behaviour.
I suppose it's not very strategic in their head. They don't think DARVO. It's not like a tactic.
No, exactly.
But it's just like a method and approach that they go to kind of counteract, to do like a defensive maneuver.
It's survival
like
for them.
Like a martial art maneuver.
It's survival for them because they have this persona that's all perfect and all amazing. So if you catch them out or make them accountable, they won't take it. They will not take it. And so that's why I say an empath is a perfect person, because then the empath will then start questioning their own behaviours. And, well, maybe it was my fault that happened. Maybe I could have done that different. Or maybe it's my fault,
Yeah.
So an example of this I heard recently, where there was a friend of mine who was in a very toxic relationship. Again, I can't say this guy's a narcissist because he isn't diagnosed, but he certainly has narcissistic traits. And he left his phone, they're watching TV, left his phone in the living room. He went off, and this message popped up that was a little bit, just a notification. She wasn't checking his phone, just came up, and it was from somebody from work and it was a little bit flirty, a little bit saucy. And she thought, okay, right, I'm going to have to ask him about this. So she said, this girl has sent this message and it's left me feeling a bit upset. Can you explain? Straight away, denied that it happened. No, she hasn't. And she's like, I saw it. Then he attacked. Well, you keep speaking about your friend at work. Something's obviously going on there. And so she was thinking, oh my gosh, yeah. well, it's just because I'm working with him. It's only because I'm working with him. It's not because there's a relationship. And straight away, she then apologised. And he was saying, you know, you're so controlling, you look at my phone. And so she was thinking, gosh, you know, maybe, you know, I shouldn't have looked at that message. It just popped up. And so straight away, he had reversed the roles and she became the problem. So she was apologising. And this, not argument, but this confrontation that she'd had where she just wanted an explanation to this message that she'd seen, suddenly it was her fault. There were accusations thrown at her and he was not accountable and he didn't have to explain his situation. So nothing gets resolved.
That's insane. The way that is manoeuvred. And what's the biggest cause, do you think, of narcissism?
So narcissism is, we're not born narcissists. Narcissist is something that is developed from the very early years. So it might be a trauma response, childhood trauma response, or a lot of the time it's believed that it can be a child who's kind of over-pampered, you know, never told off, you know, adored, the golden child, put on a pedestal, and it's created.
You see this, there's a big rise in things like single child families where I suppose it could be very easy for a child to feel very center of the world, main character energy. I've heard narcissism also referred to as is a person who thinks that they are all life is about. Another story that I like to draw upon is the story of Lucifer from the Bible.
Okay.
I think it's a description of the archetype of pride and how taking too much pride in yourself and the things that you do and the way that people see you almost has this like long run, it will just mess you up in the long run. I think the story is Lucifer was one of God's highest archangels and was very good looking, charismatic, had a way with people and became super popular to the point where with the people he was almost more popular than God. And God said, relax, basically. And he said no. And God had ended up chopping off his wings and he fell to the ground. And it's a story of one of the stories, I think, of Satan and the devil and this sort of thing. I don't know it too well, stand to be corrected. But I also I think we see that kind of thing in the world today too, with the uprise of like social media. It's all about image. It's not actually about being.
Yeah.
We hear stories of people who look like they're being a certain person when they're actually not, and they can't live up to the expectation.
Yes.
What do you think on that?
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so many elements to what you've said there. You see, the thing is, I mean, somebody can be, you know, loved and adored and cherished and everything like that, but still made accountable for their actions. You know, so there's so many elements to creating a monster or somebody with not high narcissistic traits, for example. And yes, there's many people, you know, I think quite often we can assign narcissism or narcissistic traits to people. We all have narcissistic traits. We can all be, you know, maybe tell a little lie or, you know, be challenged on our behaviour and immediately defend ourselves. Or, but it's when there is literally no accountability at all. And the thing about narcissism is it is a pattern of behaviour. It's not just a one or two incidents. It starts from early childhood, certainly becomes more profound early adulthood, and there's no change. There's no fixing it. So...
Could you say in a way, because I suppose like every kid in a way is a narcissist because they have to be, especially when you're a baby.
It's survival.
It's survival.
Yeah.
Do you think that narcissism is the equivalent of immaturity?
I think the thing about narcissism is it is an intentional pattern of behaviour. So it is there to cause destruction, distress to another human being, and sadly quite often it is somebody who is very close to that person, because the only people who really see the real person with the mask off are family members, intimate partners, or close co-workers, because they're very good at disguising themselves and portraying themselves.
What's the most common cycle that you see in narcissistic empath relationships?
Well, it's the perfect relationship for a narcissist, and initially the perfect relationship for an empath, because the empath wants to give, and the narcissist is like take. And it's only when the empath is completely depleted that it can go one or two ways. So that person either sadly becomes very, very unwell, and sadly sometimes, don't survive narcissistic abuse, and make decisions, sadly, where that happens, or they become educated and they become empowered, and they then hold boundaries for themselves. They start to take care of themselves. They start to protect themselves. I think the thing about narcissistic abuse is, for an empath, it's like they say it's like a bucket. So when you first meet the narcissist, you're filling up this bucket, and it's getting nicely full, and then gradually a hole appears in that bucket, and the empath keeps pouring the fluid in, but it's kind of leaking out, and then another hole appears in that bucket, and the empath is still there trying to fill the bucket, and eventually there's nothing left of that bucket. And that's when the narcissist will normally find a new supply. But for an empath, hopefully, and this is what I'm trying to do with the work that I do now, is try and help people when they are at that point where they are just wondering what has happened. And it's either they are starting to realise, or they've already realised, and some of them may still be in the relationship. Not all of them are out of the relationship. So it's creating a safe space for them to make decisions, to become empowered, but to do it safely.
For someone who maybe suspects their partner of being a narcissist, they see the narcissistic tendencies.
Yes.
What would your best advice be to them?
So I think that the most profound thing about being in a relationship with a narcissist is, will that person change? So if they are, if they are showing this pattern of behaviour that is becoming hugely destructive to you and those around you, and in every relationship there's conflict, and actually sometimes it's a positive thing, and you create healthy conflict and healthy boundaries, and both of you together work towards creating that. The thing with the narcissist is they will not take the accountability, and they will not do the work, and they will sometimes provide like fake sorrow. I'll never do it again. I will change. I will do this. But if you don't see change, it might be momentarily. Maybe they will change initially, but then if that person doesn't do the work on themselves and isn't willing to do the work with you, that relationship isn't going to change. And that's a personal decision for the person who's still in that relationship. Can I continue like this? The thing about narcissistic abuse in a long-term relationship is it just happens so insidiously. It's not like it happens straight away and you go, oh my goodness me, this person's a narcissist. What narcissists do is create, by mirroring, this safety space where you think, I've met the person of my dreams. I've made a great connection with this person, and we're going to move forward in a really exciting, positive way. And then slowly, these patterns of behaviour start to arise, and they just become more frequent and more destructive as the relationship continues. And it's only really sometimes when you get to the end of the relationship that you're thinking, oh my goodness. So in my personal situation, as I said, when we separated, we were going to a therapist together. And this conversation that I had with her this one day, it was after she stopped seeing my former husband. And what she was trying to do was to empower me in a very gentle way, because I was highly vulnerable at the time. And she said to me, okay, Kerry, right, let's just imagine, for example, in like 3 months' time or 3 years' time, you meet this person and they are just everything you could have wished for. Like, they are good looking and they are kind and they appear to be perfect. They're supportive, you know, everything about them is great. And you start this relationship, but then very suddenly they start to say, do you know something? You hand the finances over to me, I'll sort them out. And
they're seeking to take control.
yeah, exactly. And oh, you know, you want to go away with your friends? Well, I just really miss you and I haven't spent much time with you, so I'd like to take you away instead. So why don't you come with me? And I would say, well, no, there's absolutely no way I would do that. And she said, but that's what's happened to you. But it was over a period of 25 years. Like, it just chips away at you very, very slowly. So you almost don't see it happening.
I guess it's like similar to, like, I don't know, going to the gym. Like, your progress is so incremental that over a long period of time, you may not realize. And then you look at a photo of yourself from years ago and you think, wow. I've come a long way. Absolutely. I suppose it's the same tactics of that. Is it's the small chipping away to create the bigger statue of what's the long run.
Yeah, and the thing about being in a relationship with a narcissist is the creation of this cognitive dissonance, where every time they behave in a really appalling way or an upsetting way, you think back to the person you met and you go, but I met that guy. And every now and again you see that guy. Like, they're not terrible all the time. If they were terrible all the time, you'd be like, you know what, this is not working for me. But you hang on to the person that you met. And every now and again, my former husband, he would appear and I'd go, oh, that's him. Like, what did I do today to make him, I must try harder. Like, here he is again. And then like a few days later, he probably wouldn't talk to me. I'd get the silent treatment and I'd be thinking, oh my goodness, like, what have I done? You know, and then he would appear again, like the guy that I met, and I was thinking, oh, and that's why people stay in these relationships, because it's not bad all the time. And sometimes it's good, you know? And so you stay there like just hoping that it will be okay and that person will come back. And if you try hard enough, that person will reappear again and it'll be amazing.
Do you think that there is, for people who are stuck in that cycle of hoping that they're going to have the person again that they once fell in love with, and at what point do you look at yourself and go, it's time to get out?
That's why people stay in relationships for a long time, because my situation was, you know, somebody asked me the other day, would I still be in the relationship if he hadn't left, if he hadn't sought out a new supply and, you know, a new relationship? And I probably would, you know. And there were times that I would be sat there in a complete daze, you know, there'd be like ongoing gaslighting abuse where I'd be thinking, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I didn't trust who I was anymore. I didn't trust my judgments. I was just completely lost. And I'd slowly become more and more isolated from people, so that I didn't have the freedom to see my family as much as I wanted to, have quality time with friends. So I'd almost become like this isolated entity where I just didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know who I was. And I didn't feel as though I could talk to anybody about it, because I was in such a confused state that I just thought, this is going to sound really stupid. Like, if I explain this to people, they're going to think, well, look, you know, you've got healthy kids, and from the outside everything looks great. Like, what's your problem?
Is that confused state? I know you just touched on cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a really interesting state of mind. Is it when two opposing...
Yeah. It's a conflict of reality, really, two realities. So I'm seeing this good person, this Jekyll and Hyde person, and not quite enmeshing them together. So
why does a narcissist do this? Why does a narcissist create cognitive dissonance?
Just to keep you as a supply, or to keep you in the relationship, because the Jekyll and Hyde character, the bad person you see, or the bad behaviours that you see and are witnessing and living with, are the real them. But every now and again they can perform like they do to the outside world, that they're a good person, that they can be kind, that they can do these things. And it just keeps you in this state of hoping that you're going to get that good person back, that person that you met. It just causes so much confusion, so much confusion. They say that narcissism actually causes brain damage because of the profound effect that it has on your amygdala, on your hippocampus, your frontal cortex, your emotional well-being, your sense of reality, your sense of self is affected so badly. You've got your amygdala in the brain that is like your little alarm bell. And everybody has this little alarm bell that goes off. So say you go to bed tonight and your fire alarm goes off, you go, whoa, okay, your amygdala goes, right, Louis, come on, get out, call 999, and you go into like this, fight or flight, I'm out, I'm dealing with it. For people in narcissistic relationships, your amygdala is constantly on the go. It's constantly looking for this danger. So you're constantly in fight or flight. You are on hyper alert, hypersensitive. You're reading emotions from that narcissistic person that you're with. You're constantly trying to work out what kind of mood they're in.
It's a constant state of stress.
Constant state of stress. So your body is constantly flooded with stress hormones. You've got the adrenaline, you've got the cortisol, and the long-term physical effects of that is devastating for a lot of people.
Is that walking on eggshells, so to speak?
Yeah.
I feel like so many people in relationships feel like they walk on some sort of eggshells anyway, with a lot of things. You don't want to displease your partner, but then it gets to a certain point where everything feels like you're cracking an eggshell somewhere. Do you feel like you deal with this quite a lot too in the people you speak to, the walking on eggshells type situation?
Exactly. So the people that I work with, the patterns of behaviour that they have experienced are pretty much the same. It's like these people with highly narcissistic traits have all gone to a school of how to behave really badly, of how to upset people, of how not to be accountable, and they come out and I can almost tell the people that I'm working with what's going to happen next. Okay, he's doing this, I can tell you what he's going to do next. And when you're in a relationship with somebody with narcissistic traits, is you feel that they're really unpredictable because you can't ever be that person. You can't ever put yourself in that person's shoes because their behaviour is so... You can't understand it. You can't understand quite how somebody could be so awful and so cruel, and even to like their own children or their own parents or to the people around them. And so that feeling of walking on eggshells is exactly that. It's your amygdala is never resting. It is working overtime and your body is consistently flooded with stress hormones.
You mentioned that with your ex-husband, he didn't seem to get along with anybody. He cut family ties, didn't have many friends around him. And then you also mentioned that over time, he kind of brought you into that space as well. Kind of cut you off from friends, from your family. You felt like you couldn't spend time with them. What's he trying to do here?
Well, the thing is in a relationship, you're not really seen as a partner, a companion, you're seen as a supply. You're there just to feed their needs. You know, it's a one-way relationship. You know, the empath will give, because they're people pleasers. They naturally want to make everybody feel good and feel happy. And if there's something not quite right, you want to fix it. And the narcissist knows this, so they take to completely deplete an empath. So by isolating them, eventually, it doesn't. Like my former husband never said, "You can't see your friends. You're not going out tonight." It's so manipulative, you know. So if he said to me, like, "I really, really want to spend time with you. Like, I don't feel as though I've seen you this week," I would go, "Oh, that's so lovely." And what he was doing was like, he could have seen me anytime, but
Playing on your emotions.
But it was only kind of when I was going out that, you know, they used guilt really, really, really well. So that feeling of walking on eggshells, like I could pick up on like an eye roll or and go, "Oh my God, I'm in trouble. I've done something wrong. Oh my God," you know, and
you immediately start questioning what you could have done, why they're displeased.
Exactly. And even like you were saying, you know, people with average or high emotional intelligence will, in a healthy relationship, will sometimes walk on eggshells. You know, if you feel like you've upset somebody or and genuinely have, or haven't got something quite right, or you've miscommunicated something, it's so easy to go, "Oh my gosh," you know. But the thing about a healthy relationship is that healthy conflict, you know, being accountable, listening, wanting to work things through, and then coming to a solution, a resolution. With a narcissist, you can never get to that point.
Have you seen any relationships make a quite a big turnaround if they're heading in the, you know, narcissistic empath dynamic? Have you seen any turnarounds? Never seen a turnaround.
Sadly, not really. No, there will be moments of superficial. You know, if that person feels like they are losing, they're going to lose their family or their partner, they will say, "I'm going to change. I'm going to do everything to change. I will do this, that, and the other." But at the end of the day, that is who that person is. So they can only perform for so long before those toxic traits, narcissistic traits will come up again.
Do narcissists get away with it in the long run?
Oh, I'm asked this all the time, especially people I'm working with. They're like, "I just want karma."
Yeah.
I think the fact that a narcissist has to live with themselves, you know, I can't imagine not having real connections with people that I meet on the street, with people that I work with, you know, with my children. Reciprocal relationships rather transactional. You know, I mean, I'm sure you've got mates, you know, you could call your mate midnight, he'd be there for you, and you do the same. It's not like, "Oh, I need to be friends with him because of like who his dad is, he can make connections for me."
Right.
You know? So I cannot imagine it would just break my heart not to have, you know, prioritize my children because you just love them so much, or want to spend good quality time with friends and family because you just, sometimes you might not have anything in common with an uncle or whatever, but it's a connection, and you just want to be with that person and learn and find interest and memories and common ground and all that kind of thing, you know.
They say a marker for a good friend is someone who is genuinely happy or can reciprocate your positive emotion when something goes well for you.
Absolutely.
And
narcissists can't do that.
And they can't do that. Envy, jealousy.
They are highly, even though they will come across as very confident, cocky sometimes, charismatic, they are actually highly vulnerable people, really vulnerable. And
as in like insecurities deep down.
Yeah. And very low self-esteem, which is why they create this grand fake persona, you know, that they do not want anybody to see behind the mask.
And I suppose it's that detachment from image and reality too.
Absolutely.
And the true way to go about it is being the person that people think you are. Yeah. I heard a good quote from a man called Alex Hormozy on a podcast, and he says, confidence doesn't come from shouting affirmations in the mirror. It comes from having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Oof. And I suppose it's quite a deep way to put it, but I suppose for someone like a narcissist, they know deep down that they're not who people think they are. And so that breeds more insecurity, and that insecurity breeds more of a need to show yourself as an even better person that you are. And I suppose it's like a downward spiral from that. It's like a narcissist becomes more and more narcissistic the more they purport and the more they let down their image to other people, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, like you were saying before about, do you think they ever kind of get calmer? I think in many cases they do, because they can only create this lie for so long before they're found out. So they manipulate different groups of people. They use triangulation to cause chaos. And it's only sometimes people come together and will hear a narrative and go, that doesn't sound quite right. And then more and more people become aware of these pathological behaviours.
Is there any confirmation bias, would you say, in a person, like say they notice one narcissistic trait and then jump straight to the conclusion they're a narcissist? And so that belief makes them find every single reason as to why they could be a narcissist. Do you think that that's partly a cause of why people over-label it as such?
I think that people over-label things, or certainly narcissism, because sometimes it's just easy, isn't it? You know, like it is an overused word, and it can be used certainly in the wrong terms. You know, somebody might, and you know, relationship might break up, and they'll go, oh well, he was a narcissist, and they go, oh well, you had a lucky escape, rather than, you know, actually talking through the reasons why that might have ended. And as I said at the beginning, like people who have truly experienced a narcissistic relationship, and I think today we've talked mainly in intimate partners. You know, I know people who've had a narcissistic boss who has absolutely caused such a profound negative effect on their lives. A parent. I think it's very difficult for children to recognise that until they're older, because obviously children grow up with these relationships that to them are normal.
I suppose everyone sees their parents as the average parents.
Yeah,
right?
like that's my normal. Like you might say, oh, my dad's a bit tricky. Or my mum's really lovely. My dad's really lovely. My mum's a bit, you know, you have to be a bit careful what you say. And it's only when you get older that you start to think, maybe not that they're not a narcissist, but, you know, have these highly narcissistic traits.
Did they get adopted? Are they like passed down generations?
Well, I think behaviours can be, you know, as you know, and it's about being a cycle breaker, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, so we can all, I mean, my children will probably look at me and go, I don't like that about my mum's personality, so I'm going to make sure that I don't do that. And that's cool. That's absolutely fine. They can talk to me about it, or they can not talk to me about it, and they can make changes. And that's really powerful, and that's what I would want them to do. From a personal level, you know, most people who are considered empaths or with high emotional intelligence have probably had a childhood trauma as well, in the same way a narcissist has, but they have chosen a path of survival in a different way. So creating like these protector parts. So to soothe their nervous systems, for example, we were talking about people pleasing. So empaths, you know, to do something over the top and lovely and to make somebody feel really good about themselves, or to do something nice for somebody, soothes their nervous system. And it's kind of manipulating in a different way. You know, it's for a good reason.
So like narcissists tell black lies and empaths would tell white lies.
Yeah,
And I suppose that's black, white, yin, yang.
exactly that.
Yeah, and that's just endless cycle.
Yeah, and there's lots of things about narcissism that are very black and white, but obviously there's a lot of grey areas as well. But that's certainly one of them.
What about the narcissist who pins everyone else down as narcissists? Have you seen that?
There are certainly patterns of behaviour that narcissistic or people with highly narcissistic traits will perform. So if they feel like they're going to be found out, or if they do something, for example, my former husband had an affair that he wasn't accountable for. He lied about it. It didn't happen. It wasn't his fault. You know, every excuse going. You know, people have affairs, but a lot of people will go, I did it. I made a mistake. I can see that what I did has caused, you know, upset. There's been a ripple effect. It hasn't just affected me and my partner or me and my wife or whatever. There's been a ripple effect. Narcissists will create a smear campaign. They will change the narrative. They will rewrite history so that they are not accountable. So for me, I have become this terrible person. I have been, you know, I was a terrible wife and unloving, and so their survival mode is creating almost like laying down sand that other people are the problem. Like if they did something bad, I had to do it because she was like this.
Right.
You know, it wasn't really my fault because if he had done that, then that wouldn't have happened. You know, so it's just so manipulative.
And they use methods of like coercion and like try get deep into your psyche.
Yeah.
Control, pull the strings on your brain.
Yeah, exactly that. So when you were saying about what are the narcissistic traits, if, for example, you're going through a divorce or something, if you were to go to a court and say, he's narcissistic, you will be portrayed as, she's completely doolally, this person. She's making these accusations. Whereas if you can name, date, give explanations, evidence of financial abuse, coercion, coercive abuse, gaslighting, triangulation, you know, all of these things. It's all about like I say, patterns of behaviour. You know, if somebody is going to be diagnosed as a narcissist, a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist won't just, you know, have an appointment for an hour and then go, yeah, you are, or you're not. Okay, you can go now. It is a really extensive. So what they will do is they will look at their life from late childhood, early adulthood, how their patterns of behaviour have affected people. They will probably meet with people along the way who've had close relationships with that person. It's really extensive. So, like when you say, you know, this word narcissist gets thrown about so much, it's so complicated.
When you're actually trying to pin down what a narcissist actually is.
Yeah, and because there's so many different types of narcissists as well. You know, you've got the
they?
overt, covert, somatic, cerebral. I mean, it's extensive, but they're all under the umbrella of somebody who has no or low empathy, who manipulates, uses control, you know.
For their own personal gain.
Exactly. And their intentions are to cause distress to another human being without taking accountability, responsibility.
Where does narcissism differ from psychopaths, sociopaths?
So, a psychopath and a sociopath will always be a narcissist. There will always be narcissistic traits. However, a narcissist won't necessarily be a sociopath or a psychopath. And it's almost like a sliding scale. of a personality disorder. All of them have little or no empathy for others. A psychopath, more extreme. And I think sometimes when we think of psychopaths, like in my mind, I think of like Silence of the Lambs. You know, somebody who can go and murder their own mother, murder their own child, and feel nothing.
The connotation of the word psychopath is crazy person, but what it actually means is just the lack of feeling emotion, right? Lack of feeling emotion for other people. Mm-hmm. What about sociopaths?
Sociopaths, again, are always narcissists, but sociopaths take more risks. So I can't remember the statistics, but there was some work done with certain groups of men in prisons, and most of them would be classified as sociopaths. So they take more legal risks. They don't abide by the law at all.
Because they think they're above it?
Yeah, but that's kind of a generalisation. As I say, it's far more complicated. But all of them have the narcissistic traits, and it's on this kind of sliding scale to the extreme of the psychopath.
Can you see a psychopath, sociopath, narcissist all in one person? I suppose, as you said, sociopaths and psychopaths are types of narcissists.
Yeah. So a psychopath will have all of the traits of a sociopath and narcissist, but a narcissist won't necessarily. The thing about a narcissist is they lack accountability, but they carry shame. So even though they don't have the emotional intelligence to take it on board, they will feel, and they don't want to feel shame. Because that is the chink in the armour. So that's why they project it onto somebody else. So everything they do that is bad, either they deny that it's happened, use gaslighting or Darve, or it's somebody else's fault. I had to do that because Louis made me do it. Or if Louis hadn't done that, I wouldn't have done this. You know, so it's just...
What's the most extreme case of narcissism you've heard?
Well, the thing about... Like I was saying, for some people, it's like a life sentence. And I do know people in my community who've lost their lives.
Because they got so stuck into it mentally.
The abuse has been so severe. And this lady, you know, had 3 young children. Her husband was an upstanding member of the community, you know, had a good job, was perceived as a really nice guy, really, really lovely. But the emotional and mental abuse was just intolerable. And post-separation, in the case of many people that I work with, they are either coming to the end of the relationship where they're making a decision to leave, or they are just going through separation, or they're post-separation. And the sad thing about narcissistic abuse is it generally gets worse after separation, because the narcissist has to feel control.
And what do they do when they don't?
Yeah, exactly. They react in all sorts of extreme ways.
What type of things do you usually see when the separation happens? Because I suppose that's the thing that the person needs to do, is get out. Yeah. But does it get worse from that?
I think the people that I'm working with who are considering leaving a relationship, they just have to get as much support as possible. And it's not just a quick leave. It has to be planned, and there has to be support. And there's so much support out there. Refuge, Women's Aid, Samaritans, GP, police, you know, record everything, document everything, and get support. And that's not easy to do. It's really not easy to do. Post-separation is when just they up the ante. Gaslighting, abuse, the smear campaign. As an empath or somebody who is the victim of a narcissistic relationship, kind of has to feel like they have to explain themselves. Instead of... Like, for me, as I say, I was really lucky that we were seeing a therapist at the time, and made me aware, and she gave me a lot of help and support. And so what I realised was that my relationship, I'd had absolutely no boundaries whatsoever. And suddenly I needed to put boundaries in place. I didn't know how to do that. I'd completely lost who I was. I was like, well, I'm just here to help him. I'm here, I'm this supply. So what do I do now? So I think the first step for somebody who is newly separated or going through separation is trying to connect with people again and
Remind you of who you are.
finding people, either connecting with family again. And it's a really gentle process because people are really, really vulnerable. And quite often there's children in tow as well, so it's supporting not just that person, it's the people around them as well. It's hard because you've become conditioned to accept behaviour that really isn't very kind at all. And you can't suddenly then go, right, okay, I'm going to be this person. I'm not going to tolerate that anymore, because you're in this state of almost like you're having an out-of-body experience a lot of the time. Like, did this really happen to me? Like, is this my reality? And I can only describe it for me personally, like I was like looking in on my own life. Like, what the heck has happened here? It's just bizarre. It's the strangest feeling. And so I got help through Refuge and the Echo Society. And the Echo Society are specifically there to help people who've either in narcissistic abuse relationships or have come out of a relationship. And they were just incredible. But it is a process of just being really kind to yourself, connecting again with people and life, finding out what you want to do, what you like to do, doing things for you, becoming a bit selfish and going, do you know what? Like I say, putting these boundaries in.
I suppose for the empath, that just doesn't feel natural.
Doesn't feel natural at all. So the therapist that I was seeing gave me a really great analogy, and she said that imagine me, I'm in a field and I've got all these people in my life in the field with me, and they are family members, friends, childhood friends, new friends, co-workers, my children. Everybody's in this field and there's no fences up. But in this field, there are also people who aren't healthy for me at all. And actually, there are people in this field who are knowingly causing me a huge amount of upset and distress. But I still let them in. There's no boundaries up. There's no fences up. On the other hand, my former husband is in a field as well. And he's got all these people around him as well. But he's got a very tight fence just around himself. And he wakes up in the morning and he goes, right, who do I need today? Right, you can come in because I need you to do this. Do it? Okay, you can go now. His boundaries are like so tight. Whereas I've got this field of people all having access to me. And I'm just trying hard to like please everybody and even the people who aren't good for me. And she was saying, what you need to do very slowly and very gently is start putting little boundaries up.
Your own fence.
Yeah, my own fence. And then maybe eventually there'll be some people who actually won't even be allowed in your field. And that slowly started to happen to me. So I eventually went no contact with quite a few people. And that was really hard because
Why?
I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm this terrible person. Like, I'm a really terrible person.
But it was so that they could stop feeding off of you.
Yeah, but the relief, it's amazing.
You touched on earlier that a narcissist tends to sever relationships with everyone if they don't meet their needs. And they don't really have a circle of people. I heard a great saying, if you keep having the same problem, you are the problem. And I suppose that applies to a narcissist too. If they keep having the same problem with people, I'm using the label narcissist here, not necessarily saying that the people who experience this are narcissists, but you are the problem with those people. You don't connect to them not because of them, but because of you.
Yeah.
However, I do, now thinking about it, I think that there's some exception to that, which is empaths. They must feel surrounded by narcissists. So many people that they meet and make friends with and have relationships with, they must meet so many narcissists. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, because the thing about the empath is, especially when you first meet a narcissist, you'll probably get a sob story. And what they're doing is they are watching you and they are testing you. Mm-hmm. So you'll get a sob story and you might go, oh, well, okay. Or you might go, oh my God, that's terrible. Oh God, I can really see how that affected you. And they're like, okay, I've got a good one here. Mm. And then throughout the relationship, you will be put under pressure where you will be tested. And when I was first in this relationship, I did have boundaries, not very strong boundaries, but I had way more boundaries than I had at the end, which was like non-existent. And so I am very anti-drugs. Whatever people do, fine. If you want to do drugs, you want to do drugs. As long as you're not hurting anybody, fine. But I do not want to be in a relationship with somebody who is using drugs. That's just a personal thing for me. And he knew this. And then after a few weeks, he told me that he'd been caught doing drugs. Got into trouble with police. And I just said, right, you know where I stand on this. Absolutely, I'm out. And he was like, I am so sorry. I promise you it will never happen again. I will do all the work. I will never embarrass you again. I will never blah, blah, blah. And I went back. And so he's like, oh, okay. She'll hear what I'm saying. It's fine. She'll just take it on board.
Does that relate to Darvo?
Yeah. In a way.
I suppose it's like, he's not necessarily like defending himself as such, but he's maneuvering in the situation where it's like, I am busted now.
Yeah.
How can I now
reframe this? Yeah, manipulate myself out of this situation. Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice that you received from your therapy that you like to pass on to people now?
You know, I have to do work on myself because I realise that I'm a people pleaser and that won't change. You know, I'm still Kerry. I love to be with people, spend time with people, help people. I'll go out of my way to help strangers, anybody. I don't want that to change. I don't want to change my personality, but I will only apply that to people who deserve that, you know. And it's a huge process coming out of a relationship, narcissistic relationship, where you are finding yourself again and kind of putting boundaries in place, slightly changing things about you that don't feel natural and initially really don't feel comfortable. So even, for example, a friend saying, you know, you want to meet for coffee next week, and I'm thinking, oh God, I'm really busy. I've got so much to do, but I'm going, oh my God, I need to look at my diary, I need to wiggle this, jiggle this, and make this work for this person. And now I'm like, I really, really want to see you, but next week is going to be really difficult for me. It's as simple as that.
But deep down, that feels really
it feels terrible, you know, it just feels really uncomfortable. But more you do it, and you know that the people who really love and care about you don't care whether you can meet next week or the week after. It's no big deal. But it's just making little steps, little changes, and just being so kind to yourself. You know, just doing the basics, just taking time out, just walking, just connecting with people again, connecting with nature again. And I know it's kind of becomes a bit of a cliche, exercise, all of these things just do whatever you need to do. And it's not a comfortable feeling, because as an empath, you want to please everybody else.
Yeah.
You kind of will put yourself right at the bottom of the list. So to kind of put yourself not necessarily at the top of the list, which is what you're kind of aiming for, because it's, especially, I had young children who go through this process with me, but I knew that I had to really heal, and I really had to work on myself. I had to be strong. I had to become empowered, because I had them watching me. They were with me all the time. They were with me 100% of the time. So I had to do the work. And I really don't want them to be drawn into unhealthy relationships. I want them to feel empowered, to feel healthy connections. Again, whatever relationship that might be, even in a workplace or in a future intimate relationship, I want them to make really good choices. And I want them to never, ever be in the situation that I was in.
If you had a short paragraph, a few sentences to say to someone on avoiding getting in a situation that you did, what would you say?
That's so tricky, because I think if you're naturally an empath, you are drawn to sometimes toxic people. Not always, but boundaries are so important in every aspect of your life. Boundaries are so important, because it's self-preservation and it's self-protection, and that is your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, and that's the most important thing.
Boundaries. How do you establish your boundaries?
Yeah, well,
not just to another person, but how do you even figure them out yourself?
Yeah, exactly. I'm still trying, Louis. I'm still trying to figure that one out. If it doesn't work for you, it's okay to say, this isn't working for me. And it's just not always easy, but you've got to have the boundaries. You've got to be okay saying no. You've got to be okay challenging people without feeling fearful. You've got to be okay making decisions for yourself that are beneficial to you. It's okay saying no to things that you feel are unhealthy to you. But this is a process. This is a journey that I'm on. It's not something that I was able to switch and go, right, I've got boundaries. It's a process, and I still really, really struggle with it.
On the contrary,
yeah.
What are some key things that you see in successful relationships?
We're talking about narcissism being thrown about. It's all like this, oh, he's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. What it has created is space for conversations, communications about red flags in relationship, green flags in relationship. And my children are at the age now where this conversation is being brought into schools, which is great. And we all want to have healthy relationships, and we really want our children to have healthy relationships. And so what I will try and do is try to name green flags, green healthy parts of somebody or their behaviours in relationships. Likewise, I'll use red flags as well, because I think identifying it, especially for young children, and this goes with bullying in the classroom and a whole range of things. If you can open conversation about, or asking your children, okay, so when so-and-so did that, do you think that's like a green flag? Do you think that was a healthy thing for them to do? And how did they resolve that? And did they take accountability for that? You can ask your children themselves, do you think that was an okay thing to do? Mm-hmm. Do you think that was a green flag, or do you think that was a red flag? Do you think you could have done better? It's just opening up space for conversation and awareness.
I think it's very important. Like, I have this like conversation with people quite often. I'm not long out of sixth form school myself, and I think that one thing that they just do not teach kids is life skills. It's all academics. It's all maths, English, science, history. People need to learn the basics: how to talk to people, maybe some more things to do with managing money and this sort of thing. But
how to file taxes.
yes, exactly.
So important.
Because you're thrown into the world and you've got to figure all this stuff out. But I think that so many people could really benefit from the stuff that you're saying now. How to understand other people, you know, red flags, green flags, go near, stay away.
Yeah.
You know, what are 3 key things that you would notice that would say red flag, stay away?
Lack of accountability. That is the biggest for me. So if you confront somebody or even question like the slightest thing, if they suddenly Darvo comes into place, I'm like, okay, I see it. I think that lack of empathy, you know, it doesn't take much really, and it's something that comes naturally, thankfully, to the majority of us, to have empathy and understanding and kindness to not only our loved ones but people out in the world as well. And I think for me personally, the thing that I found most toxic was gaslighting abuse.
What are some core examples of that you've seen?
Gosh, there's
or experienced?
So many. All through my relationship, there was gaslighting. So, catching him out doing something, and even though I would have messages or would have photos, no, it's not me. It's to the point, Louis, that it's almost like, say if I bump into you in a year's time, and I go, hey Louis, I really enjoyed talking to you last year, and you go, I didn't talk to you last year.
Trying to convince you that you're going crazy.
Yeah, and I'd be like, well, yeah, because I was introduced, you know, by your dad, Carl, and you go, my dad's not called Carl. It is that sinister.
And they do it so
convincingly to your face. But the worst thing about it is, and this was more prevalent post-separation, was I would question things and he would say, like, that didn't happen, but are you okay? Like, we're all really worried about you. And I'd be thinking, oh my goodness me, this triangulation, like, we are all worried about you. It's not just me seeing this madness in you, Kerry. It's everybody's seeing it. We're all really worried about you. Thinking, oh my goodness me, crikey. It is me. Like, I actually went to my GP and said, I've gone insane. You need to do something with me. And thankfully, she was incredible. And she was very understanding and had done a lot of education on coercive control, gaslighting abuse, financial abuse, all of these toxic traits. And so she would see me every week and she would call me regularly and explain why they do it, the purpose of it, and the outcome of it, which is where I was. Like, if you doubt your truth, you don't speak it. So I'm going to make you feel so crazy that anything you say, if
doubt
you do,
yourself.
Yeah. So you won't say it because you'll think, oh my God, well, I sound crazy. Like, nobody will believe me.
That must have...
That's the purpose.
Immense detriments to mental health.
Yeah.
Not just the way you think, but actual, like, brain problems.
Yeah.
Must double question everything you do.
Yeah, well, that's the part of the brain damage. So what, in your brain, you have the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is like your timestamp. Like, we're having this conversation now, it's time-stamped in my brain. I spoke to Louis, 2nd of January, blah, blah, blah. I know this happened, it's time-stamped. So if somebody is then saying, no, didn't happen, you're then thinking, oh my goodness. So your hippocampus that holds all of these, like, experiences, these memories, these dates, these times, suddenly become irrelevant. And so that causes PTSD or complex PTSD because nothing is real. Everything you know to be true and real and has happened, I've imagined it.
How does one, with that sort of PTSD of questioning everything, trying to figure out what reality is, how does one come back from that?
I still have issues with it. I still check messages and I still over-explain myself, and I will still, if somebody has doubted something that, not in a horrible way, but I've just said, are you sure you put that or close that door or something? I'm like, oh my gosh, and if I've got evidence of it, I go, look, here's the message, or here's the photo that I did close the door, or I did do this. It's long term, it doesn't just stop. So you never really heal from narcissistic abuse, it's so complex. But what you try and do is to find a way to understand it and to have that self-trust again. And it's not something that it probably will never happen. I'll never get to the point where I'm like fully, feel tickety-boo. I feel absolutely fine now. There will still be triggers that happen that make me go, oh my gosh, it will take me back to that time. And that's the effect of the hippocampus, not being able to timestamp things or doubting my reality.
I suppose like when a narcissist does that, it's like they're taking down all your defenses, completely putting you in a state of confusion, trying to disarm you and make you as vulnerable as possible, so that when the person in a confused state is looking for answers, here I am, the narcissist, I've got all the answers for you, come with me.
Exactly. And then that's their false reality, because it's real. Because what is real for her doesn't exist. So what I've created, this story, this narrative, rewriting of history, rewriting of my behaviours, things that I've done, I'm in control of this.
Have you ever read the book 1984?
No, but somebody's told me to read it.
It's very interesting because all these things that you're talking about are the tactics that the Big Brother, like dystopian, tyrannical leader did to the whole population. Rewrote history. All history was changed, redesigned language, everything. In the book, they call it doublethink. I believe. I may have to relook this up after, but doublethink. It's that gaslighting of absolutely everything. Makes you feel so confused. You don't know what's what. You don't know what to do. And it makes you extremely vulnerable.
Exactly. And that's the purpose of it. And we see what's happening now. I mean, narcissism is way more prevalent now because of, leaders that we have around the world are clearly displaying these personality traits. And Trump, for example, is a classic. And
the charisma, the power, the admiration.
Yeah. He thinks he's amazing. He thinks he does everything right, like he's perfect. And if anybody challenges him, well, they're out. So there you go.
Being an expert on narcissism yourself, how do you find that affects you in social situations?
So I think when you have the awareness, when it is in your realm of everyday living, that amygdala that I said, your alert system where you're trying to navigate your way in this relationship with the narcissist. So you are reading their messages or their vibe when they come in the door, or how they drive down the driveway. I can hear the gravel. Oh, that doesn't sound good. That goes because they are kind of removed or semi-removed from your life. Sometimes you can't go no contact with them because of children or other arrangements. Your amygdala then becomes hyper-focused, hypersensitive to others in your life. And that's when the triggers come in, because you might be in a situation where something is said, or there is a behaviour, or you might see it in a relationship between a friend and a wife or husband or whatever, and you're so hypersensitive to it, but you can only control what's going on with yourself. And that's why I said about the self-protection. You know, you've got to do the work on yourself, concentrate on yourself, and hopefully never get into a relationship or so far into a relationship with somebody again that is going to cause so much upset and distress. But yeah, once you've got the awareness of it, you see it. You see it on the TV, like TV personalities or people in your own life. And sometimes it's difficult because you might see it in people who are very close to you, that it's hard to actually give just to recognise the narcissistic traits with people who you love. And some people, you know, have to maintain relationships with narcissistic people. Sometimes you can go no contact, and some people make very difficult decisions to go no contact with people. But some people continue to have relationships with people who aren't particularly healthy in their lives, but you change the way. You can't change a narcissist. You can't change somebody who has those behaviours. You can only change the way you are, how you react to them. So you have to do the work on yourself also. So if you are going to continue having contact with somebody in your life, it might be a mum or a dad or a sibling who's quite toxic, you protect yourself. You put boundaries in place, or you react differently. You're not the people pleaser anymore.
Yeah, that answers my next question.
Sorry.
So, no, I was going to say to you, you know, for the person who is around a narcissist and you just, whatever the circumstance, maybe you physically can't get away from them. Maybe it is someone in the workplace.
Yeah.
You don't want to leave your job.
Yeah.
Or it's a family member. You know, you can't really, it's harder to cut off your family member. I mean, if it was a friend, it's easier maybe to cut off a friend than it would be if it were in a relationship. But at the same time, it's very hard to cut off these people.
Yeah, it is, because also what happens is, like, you might cut off a friend, but that friend might be in a friendship group, and the consequence might be that you have to cut everybody off or have a limited relationship with some members of that group who you actually really, really like. Also, you might cut off a family member and have to cut off, or they might cut you off. Because the thing about narcissists is they're incredibly manipulative. So if they sense that you're onto them, they will create this smear campaign, this false narrative about you. And quite often, as has been my case in my situation with my husband's family, ex-husband's family, is I've been cut off.
Because...
And so there are a couple of people that's okay, but it means that I've lost contact with people who I really loved and really cared about. And I just have to accept that there's nothing I can do about that. So it's not straightforward, because it's not as though you can pick people out and go, yeah, that person's not healthy. That person makes me feel like this. Gone, gone, gone. Because, like you say, you might lose your job. You might lose a friendship group. You might lose your whole family. It's not an easy thing to do.
I suppose it's like you find yourself in a situation, you think, damn, I fell for the traps. I didn't see it for what it was, and now I'm in this, and now I'm stuck in this. For someone who feels really, really stuck, really down, really dark, really confused, in the worst states you can imagine of being stuck with someone who's narcissistic.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person in one sentence?
There is help out there. As I said before, I reached out to Refuge, who were incredible, and they were so knowledgeable and so understanding of people in relationships with people who have these tendencies. So they understood the financial abuse that I was experiencing. They understood the coercive. I didn't sound silly. I was validated. It made me feel less isolated. And it's horrible to think that other people are going through it. And this is part of the reason why I do the work I do, is because when this first happened, I just felt so alone. And I didn't want anybody to not have anywhere to go, or to not be heard, or not feel like, oh, it's really silly, I can't say it. And go, no, that is completely valid. And yeah, that's what I experienced too. You know, reach out to the Echo Society, were brilliant. Women's Aid. Try and, I think because you doubt yourself so much, I think if you can reach out to somebody who might be a friend or work colleague or family member who will understand. It's not stupid. You know, you're not going crazy. You're not going to be made out to be this, you know, I was always over emotional, or, you know, every excuse to shut me down. You're not that person. You're a person who has suffered abuse. And it's horrific, and your feelings and your experiences are valid.
Tell me specifically about your role in helping people deal with this.
So, like, I don't claim to be an expert in narcissism. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I've done work on myself. So I became a narcissistic abuse specialist. I did a lot of work on domestic abuse, especially the laws around coercive control that came into place only in 2015. And they were changed dramatically in 2021. I just wanted to have more of an understanding, really. And as I say, I initially did it for myself so that I could try and make sense of this situation that I'd endured, really. And I wanted to make changes. I had to survive. I had to get better. I was so unwell. There's so much help out for so many people. And you create like this little community, and it's really lovely because, you know, the people that I've worked with, which sadly is mainly women, men do go through, do experience narcissistic abuse as well. And I'm trying to empower men to come forward and talk about it, because with a lot of mental health problems, I think men who have suffered abuse almost it's harder for them to come forward, you know, because I don't know whether it's makes them feel less masculine, or for some reason they're weak, or, you know, they allow this to happen, or especially if the person that they're in a relationship is a woman, you know, it's so hard for men to come forward, and it happens to men. I have worked with one man.
Do you think that they, at large, like, there's a big sense of embarrassment of, you know, how have I ended up in this situation? How am I feeling like this right now?
Yeah, exactly. I saw a TV program. I think it started off on like Channel 5 and went to Netflix, and it was about this guy who he'd suffered quite often with narcissistic abuse. There's not always physical abuse, it's mainly emotional and mental abuse. He had suffered physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, and it was documented. I don't know if you saw it. It was filmed on cameras in the house.
I saw this. Was this the crazy woman that would hold a knife up to him?
Absolutely. She'd do it in front of the children. I mean, it was just horrific. And when he was talking about his experience, you know, the police officers who interviewed him were in tears, you know.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And when he was going to be interviewed, he took his clothes off that were kind of blooded, and he put a smart shirt on because he kind of wanted to have this sense of, I'm still in control. I you know, I'm not this weak person. And it was really heartbreaking. And I think, you know, abuse involving men, mental health issues involving men, how brave that he came forward and he showed himself at his most vulnerable, you know, and he spoke his truth. And it's clear to see what happened, but, you know, what an incredible man. That strength.
Vulnerability, you don't grow without the humility, the vulnerability. You have to kind of sacrifice that image that you want other people to have of you, that's like confident and brave and strong, and you won't grow if you don't sacrifice that a little bit at times. You know, you kind of need to be in that humiliating situation or the vulnerable situation for something to actually change. What did that one man that you work with speak about? Did he struggle with the process of, do I talk about it? What's going on here? Struggle in the gaslighting situation?
Yeah, I think for him, a lot of it was, you know, she would publicly humiliate him, and he would see, he would give me lots of examples, but for him, he would see like friends of his, people that he respected, laughing along with her, and then she'd go, it's just a joke. And so she was quite covert about her abuse, but in many ways would openly humiliate him, demasculate him. And then just when he raised it, you've just been so sensitive, it's just a joke. Like, what's wrong with you? So-and-so's husband can take it, why can't you take it? So he'd start to question himself, but it just completely eroded the person that he was. Like, he just didn't feel like, you know, a husband, like
Able to do anything.
Yeah, just the imbalance in the relationship just shifted. But like he said, it happened so insidiously. Like, the woman at the end of the relationship wasn't the woman he met at the beginning, and occasionally she would appear, this woman, go, oh, there she is, she's lovely. But he just became depleted, exhausted, and he doesn't talk publicly, and I don't know if he's actually spoken to friends or family or anybody. At the stage that I was working with him, he hadn't. He just couldn't. But he is now out of the relationship, and there's a lot of help for men out there also. But that's just so sad, because I think a lot of the time, whether it's physical abuse or narcissistic abuse, whatever it may be, I think a lot of people think it's men on women, and it's not always that at all.
Because it's mainly, I suppose there's like a bias in the data that's shown, isn't there?
Absolutely. Because I don't think, a lot of women don't come forward, you know, certainly a lot of men don't. So
Kerry?
I think the statistics are right up there. So this has got to be raising awareness for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for talking to me.
That was brilliant.
It was lovely.